I used to work as a ranger in a national park in the early 90s. There was only one rule we kept there: don't go down Creeker's Cave. One day, I broke it. This was my first job out of college. As a newcomer, my job was mostly to check people's climbing permits, sell tickets, and give them a brief layout of the park. The park itself was not popular, so there was only me and one other ranger named Thomas. I hoped I'd get to know Thomas more over time, but he would leave before the sun came up and come back long after it had set. One day, the boredom was eating me alive. I had to try to talk to him. I was on my fourth coffee, yawning, rubbing my eyes to stay awake. I was about to give up when the door in front creaked, and Thomas's nimble steps echoed down the hall. "Hey!" I called out as I saw his body pass the door. He stopped and slowly turned his head, his eyes wide, staring into mine. "Didn't mean to scare you." As soon as I said it, his body relaxed and he let out a deep sigh. "Hey," Thomas repeated and started walking away. "Care to join?" "I got some beer," I yelled into the hall. He stopped again. "It's late. Just a quick one." We never had a chance to talk, really. I heard a sigh from the hallway. He walked through the door, nodded towards me, and opened one of the beers. I could finally get a good look at him again. He was a man in his mid to late 50s with brown eyes, graying hair, and a graying beard. Not particularly tall or small, and not fat nor slim. His ranger uniform had sweat marks, sunburns, and a few tears. When he reached out for the beer, I could see a small circular scar around his wrist. Old, clean. We cheered, and then sank back into our chairs. Thomas picked up the bottle and twisted it around, digging at the label, taking large sips in between the digs. "How long have you been working here, Thomas?" 13 years. Do you like it?" "It's nice. I enjoy the solitude. You got any family?" He scratched at the label. "There's only ever one rule here," he said finally, "and people still break it." He took another large chug. There was less than a quarter of the beer left. "What's up with the rule?" He blinked fast and looked my way. "Nothing. The Creeker's Cave is just off limits." "But why?" "It's a dangerous cave. People get lost in there." He paused. "Sometimes they come out wrong." He stared at the map. "What do you mean?" He finished his beer, put it down, and left the room. I stared out after him. The next day, the traffic was non-existent. 2 men had requested permits for that day to scale the caves, but they hadn't shown up yet. There was an old archive room filled with newspapers that I had barely touched before. After yesterday's conversation with Thomas, I wondered if I could find anything regarding the cave. I put a small iron bell on the desk and walked to the room. The dust flew all around. My nose was stuffed immediately. I covered my face with my shirt and started putting the boxes of newspapers on a table in the room. The articles were mostly what I expected. The same old ones about the new park benches and animals from local newspapers. I was taking down more and more boxes, still not finding anything, almost giving up. But then my eyes darted over a title. "Ancient writing found in Creeker's Cave." Finally. "Ding! Come on, just a minute, ding!" Ding. Jesus, I walked to the reception. The 2 men were standing there, talking to each other. They stopped when they saw me get out. One of them was a tall man who carried barely anything, and the other was much smaller with a large backpack and camera equipment. "Here are the permits," the tall one said. "What's with the cameras?" I said and picked up the permits. "We're filming a movie," the short one said. The tall one shot him a mean look. "Just getting some footage while we climb," he said. "It's a lot of stuff to take around in a cave. We'll manage," the tall one murmured. While I checked the permits, the small one was looking at the man, fixated on one spot. "Your permits are all good." I handed them the papers back. "What caves are you planning on exploring?" "A few up north." I tried to think of the caves that were up north. None of them needed any climbing equipment. "Which ones specifically?" The tall one looked at the map behind him. His backpack was open. Inside was a picture of a cave with some sort of graffiti or something on the wall. "Haven't decided yet," he said and turned around, walking away. "Do you have the radio frequency?" I called after them. "Yes. We'll call if we need something," the tall one said and shut the door behind him. I stared at the map, trying to see if I had missed a cave, but there was none. I shrugged my shoulders and went back into the storage room. The newspaper stared at me like a pot of gold. I skipped all the text and stared down at the photo. It was black and white and hard to see. I put it up to the ceiling lights and squinted my eyes. I tried to remember the ancient writings from my high school class. Not that there were a lot, but the letters seemed so familiar, like I should have known them. The arches, the lines, they all joined together so well, like they were supposed to be exactly that way. I couldn't figure it out, but something burning inside me really wanted to know. I shook my head and stared at the clock. 30 minutes had gone by, but it felt like seconds. The archaeologist quoted in the article, Dr. R. Fallows, had apparently refused to be photographed near the cave. A small note at the bottom said he had died the following spring with no cause listed. Rattling, static. Help! The radio! I ran to the desk. Ranger station! What's your... Please help! My friend got stuck. His rope snapped. He can't get out. Where are you? Creeker's Cave. A wave of coldness washed over me. Ranger? Yes, I'm coming. I grabbed the rope from the back and ran out. A small drizzle started as I stood over the cave. The sign saying "Danger, keep out" stared at me. I shook my head and made my way in. The cave was cold and silent save for the water dripping off the ceiling. The opening was narrow, and the cave quickly narrowed further, and the ceiling lowered. I lowered my head and turned the flashlight on. A water droplet fell back down my shirt, sending a shiver down my spine, which I was trying to keep down. In the distance, I could see a diverging. Thomas's word echoed in my ears. The last thing I wanted was to get lost. Hello? I called out. Silence. Then a faint sound from the left side. I ran a little deeper and called out again. Ranger! Echoed through the cave from a distance. Coming! I yelled and ran towards the sound. Here! A flashlight waved from a distance. The small man lay on the floor with a small scratch on his head, and the camera equipment lay beside him. You okay? Yeah, hit my head trying to get him out. Where is he? Down there, he pointed. I made my way forward. A strange iron smell was in the air. The cave kept getting narrower. I slowed down, pointing my flashlight at the ground, making sure I didn't slip and fall too, but the ground wasn't getting steeper. There was a black dot right in front of me that soon transformed into a human. It was the man standing staring at the wall. I came closer to him. On the wall was the writing from the newspaper picture. Oh my God, I whispered. His eyes darted my way. Now, he yelled. My whole body jumped back. A camera click echoed through the cave. The man began to whisper to himself quickly, looking at the signs on the wall. The sounds he was making were like nothing I've heard before. Noises I didn't think the human mouth or throat could create. Rhythmic but devoid of any melody. Fast but slowed at the weirdest intervals. What the fuck is going on? I yelled, slowly backing off. The man stopped reading, froze, and his body began twitching, slowly at first, then shaking violently. The iron smell grew. The water from the ceiling dripped faster. The man stopped shaking, his face completely relaxed, blank, with no emotions. He looked up, his eyes wide, staring at me as if I were prey. I turned around and began running away full speed. The man's steps soon echoed after me. He began growling loudly like a rabid dog. I ran further. It felt like his breath was on my neck. Then I saw the small man standing there, camera in his hand, pointing it at us. You don't understand, he said. This is what it does. The man running after me gripped my shirt and pulled me towards him, dragging me closer to him. Shock ran up and down my spine. I tried to shake my shoulders, but to no avail. He began digging his nails into me. My mind panicked. I smashed the flashlight over his head. His grip finally released a little. I didn't wait and immediately jerked my body away. His fingernails ripped pieces of my clothes off. I continued running. The small man tried to get in my way, but I pushed him and kicked him to the ground. Wait, no, he screamed. But I didn't listen. My mind only focused on finding the exit. The small man's scream sounded behind me, eventually turning to an indistinct grumble. Then the ray. A ray of sun. The green. The park. I pushed the twigs and bushes out of my way, running straight to the ranger cabin. Opening the door, I had to lean on the table, almost collapsing on the ground, panting. You've been there. I jerked myself up. Thomas stood behind the counter, shaking his head. There were 2 men. One of them. Something happened to him in there. We need to call... No one is coming. His voice was quiet and certain. I called once. 12 years ago. They told me to wait inside. He paused. My wife said the same thing. The iron smell. I realized I'd carried it out with me. It was in my clothes. Thomas finally looked up. For the first time, I noticed how deep the circles under his eyes were. His hands, wrapped around the mug, had old scars across the knuckles. I don't know what it was before, he said. I know what it is now. He stood slowly. And I know it doesn't stay in the cave. We have maybe an hour before dark. Pack only what matters. He paused with his hand on the door. And don't look back at the cave when we leave. Whatever you hear, don't look back.